Hello, welcome back to another episode of Sports with Jax and Evan. I'm Jax Rogan.
I'm Evan Whitney.
And today we're going to do a new section. No, we're not doing the World Series. We decided to switch it up, and now we're doing Big Ten football / college football coverage this week since the Big Ten is finally back from its hiatus of college football. And the first section today, we're going to be going over the Big Ten games for this year each week. So we're going to go week 1 to 8, the best game each week, and give our take on it. And now we're starting with week 1. We got number 18 Michigan at number 21 Minnesota. Can Rashard Bateman and Tanner Morgan beat Michigan? These two guys are a deadly quarterback wide receiver duo with a lot of experience. And playing in that cold Minnesota weather, I think it's going to be a really good night game on ABC this coming Saturday.
So the next game we got probably the game that I'm looking forward to the most this year. We got number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Penn State on Halloween night. I mean, just a battle of probably the two best Big Ten teams in the Big Ten, and I'm really excited to see how Ohio State plays compared to Penn State.
Now moving on to week 3, we have number 18 Michigan at unranked Indiana. Every year in my lifetime, at least the last 5 years, Indiana has always played Michigan tough. Indiana finally gets their quarterback this year. I really like how their coach has developed them. I think Michigan and Jim Harbaugh are really young this year with a new quarterback after Shea Patterson's senior year. And I just think it's going to be an interesting game, and Michigan could be on upset alert this week.
So in week 4, we got number 14 Wisconsin at number 18 Michigan. I'm really excited to see how Wisconsin's quarterback play is, especially after no more Jonathan Taylor this year. They really used him in a lot of ways last year. So I'm really excited to see how they match up against Michigan, who, like Jack said, is pretty young, and I think this will be a really good game.
All right, now moving into week 5. These teams always seem like they play each other tough, like Michigan and Indiana. We have unranked Iowa at number 9 Penn State at Happy Valley. I think the big question here is, can Iowa pull off the upset in the road? I know Penn State is really young this year, but always talented under James Franklin. Journey Brown is a big loss for Penn State, and without Micah Parsons probably not playing, I think he opted out. Don't quote me on that, though. I really think Kurt Ferentz is an underrated coach in the Big Ten. I think these Iowa boys can play. I think they've been recruiting better. And I think Penn State could be on upset alert this week, hence why I think that's the Big Ten game for that week.
So for week 6, we got number 8 Penn State at number 18 Michigan. I mean, after last year, I think this is a big revenge game for Michigan after a tough loss last year. I mean, Penn State coming in with Sean Clifford. I mean, I'm just excited to see how Michigan's defense goes up against them. And obviously, we just found out a big loss for Penn State this year. No Journey Brown with a heart condition. It's a huge loss for Penn State, and it really sucks for them. But yeah, it's just a big game for Michigan. See if they can get it done after a loss last year.
And now we're moving on to week 7. We got number 6 Ohio State at number 5 Ohio State at Michigan State. It's always tough to beat Michigan State and East Lansing, even though D'Antonio is gone. I think this is one of the most talented Ohio State teams in my lifetime with Justin Fields and co. You have one of the best young wide receiver groups with Garrett Wilson and many other highly recruits like Julian Fleming. But I always think Michigan State plays them tough in that cold weather late in the year. I think this could be a closer game than Ohio State wants, as they hopefully can continue their really good season as they should have this year. And I don't know. I think it could be a tough game for them, and it could be closer with Michigan next week on their mind.
So to end out the Big Ten year, the best rivalry in college football, Michigan-Ohio State in the shoe. So the big question here is, can Michigan break the streak against this insanely talented Ohio State team? And I don't see it at all happening. But I mean, Michigan's gonna give it all they got. But I think Ohio State's too talented this year.
And then the next week is the Big Ten Championship, which we don't know. But I think this year in the Big Ten, it's going to be a really fun year and a really entertaining year.
So now on to our second section. Me and Jax are going to be predicting the Big Ten standings for this year. So start off my predictions for the East. I'll start off the East. So I got Ohio State going 8-0. I mean, this team's just the most talented team in America, I think, personally. And after last year, I think they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder, and I think they're a really gonna show America how much talent they have. And then coming at second in the division, Penn State. I think they'll just take a tough loss to Ohio State in week 2 of the Big Ten. I think Penn State's got a lot of talent too. Tough loss, like I said earlier, Journey Brown being out, but I think this is a good team. And then third in the division, I think it's going to be Michigan. I mean, young team, like we were saying earlier too. I mean, Michigan, I mean, they just haven't looked as good lately as they have, but I think they'll pull out 5 wins and get into a decent bowl game. Then I got Michigan State going 3-5. I mean, without Lewerke this year, I don't know how Michigan State will really match up against teams. This team's kind of been on the downfall too lately. And I got Indiana at 3-5. I mean, Indiana, they've got a good coach. They got a decent roster, I think, too. I mean, I just don't know if they can beat teams like Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan and teams like that. Maryland 2-6. I just don't see it there for Maryland too well. And Rutgers at 0-8. I mean, Rutgers, they've just been horrible lately. I don't think they should even be in this conference. So now on to the West. The West was a tough one for me to predict. I mean, there's just so many pretty good teams, but I wouldn't say there's any amazing teams like in the East with Ohio State and Penn State. But I got Wisconsin at 7-1. I got them. I don't really know who they'll end up losing to, but I think they'll end up losing to either Minnesota or Iowa. I think the same thing with Minnesota. I think they'll end up losing to Wisconsin or Iowa. I mean, and Iowa's 6-2. I think they'll get upset by someone and lose to Wisconsin or Minnesota too. I mean, all 3 of those teams I think could take the division, but other than that, I don't think so. And then I got Nebraska at 3-5. I mean, they got hit with a tough schedule after threatening to leave the Big Ten after they weren't happy with all this COVID stuff. I got Purdue at 3-5. After Rondale Moore opting back in, that's a big get for them, but I don't really see it there for him. Illinois 4-4 with Lovie Smith. I mean, he's a good coach, but 4-4 isn't bad for an Illinois team. And coming in at last, I think I got Northwestern. After last year, I didn't see too much talent for them, and I don't really see it for them this year.
All right, now on to my Big Ten predictions. I'm going to start like Evan here. I'm going to start from the East. And number 1, I got Ohio State 8-0. I think Wyatt Davis and Shaun Wade opting back in is a huge get. I think Justin Fields with all these young receivers, like I said, is going to have a terrific year. I also believe, like Evan, they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder under Ryan Day. And I think they're just going to be really motivated every game with only an 8-game season, and I just don't see them losing a game. And now going on to number 2, I got Penn State at 7-1. Even though, like Evan said, they lost Journey Brown, I just think that Penn State under James Franklin's really consistent. I think they beat the teams they should, and they always give up good fights against teams that they're not favored to, and they sometimes pull out games they shouldn't. And that's why I think this year they're still going to be good under Sean Clifford and James Franklin as head coach and Clifford as quarterback. And I just really like the direction they're going. And my number 3, I also have Michigan at 5-3. I think Jim Harbaugh, although he's not met expectations, is still a pretty good coach in this league. I just don't think they lose more than 3 games. I know they have a pretty tough schedule playing Ohio State and Penn State every year, but I think they're always middle of the pack under Harbaugh, and I think if talent's right, they could always be 1-2 on some years. And now moving to my number 4, I have Indiana at 4-4. I think their coach has done a good job at Indiana ever since he's came there. Indiana was always the basement of the Big Ten East, but now he's made them up to 4-4, around that caliber, and I just think they're going to keep being consistent, and hopefully if they can recruit a little better, they can go higher in the division. Now to my number 5, I have Maryland at 3-5. I think that Maryland's a pretty good team. I think they're a little better than Evan thinks they are. I like their direction they're going under their new coach, and I think Tua's brother playing next year will be a very scary sight to see because I think he's going to be really good. And if Maryland can recruit from him, I think they can really contend for being a middle of the pack in the Big Ten East and the Big Ten overall. And now moving on to my bottom two teams, I got Michigan State at 2-6. I think losing Lewerke, like Evan said, is a big deal, a really big deal. And I think under a new coach, not having D'Antonio's leadership is a big deal. And I just believe that if they can hopefully have a rebuild year, get a lot of young guys some playing time, let them find their groove, they can get better. And I also have Rutgers at 0-8. I know they got Greg Schiano as head coach, but it's also Rutgers we're talking about here. They're in the doormat of the conference ever since they came here, and they haven't been good since the mid-2000s when Schiano was head coach, actually. Now moving on to the West, I also have Evan. I have a tie at first and second with Wisconsin and Minnesota, but we'll start with Wisconsin. I really like the direction they're going. I always like their teams. They always play hard. They know their place, and they always are good at running the football. But I also believe without having Jonathan Taylor this year, they're going to have to step up and really play well at the quarterback position, who I don't know who that starter is going to be yet. But I think under this Wisconsin team, this Wisconsin program, that they're always going to be in the top of the West, and that's why I have them 7-1. Now number 2, I have Minnesota tied for first with Wisconsin. I really like the way P.J. Fleck has turned around this program. Ever since he rode the boat at Western Michigan and moved to Minnesota, they've gotten better every year. And I think having Tanner Morgan and Rashad Bateman is a big 1-2 punch, as I said earlier. And I really, really think they're a tough out for any Big Ten team, especially at their place. And at number 3, I have Iowa at 6-2. I really like this Iowa team. I think they're better. Kurt Ferentz is a really good coach. I know they lost a lot of people, but I still think they can be pretty good. And now we're moving on to my 3-way tie for fourth. I'm starting with Illinois at 3-5. I think Lovie Smith has done a really good job at turning this program around. I think they're recruiting way better than years past, as they should, because they're Illinois. They should get a lot of Chicago kids. And I just think that they're going in the right direction. I think in a few years they could be near the top of the Big Ten West like they can be. And I just think they have a good future, like a lot of these Big Ten teams do. And now for my scheduled team that really screwed them over, I have Nebraska at 3-5. I think even though Scott Frost is a really good coach in Nebraska, I think the schedule they got really, really hurts them. I don't know if they can bounce back. They have a lot of tough teams in the Big Ten they got to play since they tried to leave the conference, as Evan said, and I just think they're going to be in trouble this year. And my third team to be tied for number 4, I have Purdue at 3-5. I think Purdue's always a sneaky team, like not always good, but some years they're decent. I think this year they'll be decent with Rondale Moore. Pretty sure, as Evan said, he opted back in, which is nice. But I really think this Purdue team's pretty good. I mean, they're not in the premier talent as the other Big Ten teams, but I don't know. I think they'll be okay. And now my last team, I got Northwestern at 1-7. I think Pat Fitzgerald's a really good coach, but I think they got a really tough schedule this year. And who knows, they could be a 3-4 win team, but I just think that Illinois, Nebraska, and Purdue are a little bit better.
All right, so now me and Jax will be moving on to our third section and our personal top 5 teams. So I'm going to start off with my number 1. Just coming into the year, I got Ohio State number 1. I mean, Justin Fields in his junior year, he's got too many weapons. With Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. They got Trey Sermon picked up. I mean, with Wyatt Davis and Sean Wade up and back in, I think this team is a clear number 1 in my eyes. And then right behind them, I got Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. They got a really good team, and after last year, I got to put them right behind them because after Ohio State took that tough loss to them, heartbreaking loss. Number 3, they looked really good last week to me, and that's Alabama. They pretty much whooped Georgia, in my opinion. Stetson Bennett didn't look too good. Their defense looks good. Mac Jones is playing really good with one of the top backs, Najee Harris. This team, Nick Saban knows what he's doing. This team is looking very good to me. And then coming at number 4, this team, It's coming as a surprise to a lot of people, and that's the Cincinnati Bearcats. Desmond Ridder, I mean, he hasn't played great, no, but Luke Fickell is a great coach. This defense is really good. I mean, I can really see this team sneaking into the playoff. I really like this Cincinnati team. And then coming at number 5, this team is also a huge surprise to a lot of people probably, and that's BYU. I mean, they got one of my favorite quarterbacks in all college football, and that's Zach Wilson. This guy is, like, tremendous. And BYU, I mean, I can see them, if they can finish out the year undefeated, they're right up in there with, like, UC and possibly sneaking in there in the playoff.
All right, now on to my top 5 college football teams right now. My number 1 is Clemson. I think after watching them playing a good Miami team, I think Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Amari Rodgers, and head coach Dabo Swinney's done a really good job returning talent. I think their offensive line has been really good, and I know they lost a lot of people on their defense, but I still think their defense is really good. And I don't know. I think this is a dynasty turning into Clemson, and I just think they cause a lot of teams a lot of problems in the ACC and in the country, and they're on their hunt for their the national championship, which they very well could win. And now to my number 2, I got Ohio State. As Evan said, the weapons Ohio State has, along with Justin Fields as head coach, and their defense, getting Shaun Wade back is huge. I think their defense is the point they have to be really good at this year. I think guys like Pete Warner and Baron Browning have to step up at linebacker this year if they really want to go far. And I don't know. I really like this Ohio State team like Evan does. And number 3, I got Alabama. Like Evan said, I really like how they played against Georgia. I think their offense is the best I've seen in a long time, even with Mac Jones at quarterback. With Najee Harris running the ball along with Javonte Smith and Jalen Waddle at wide receiver, I think this team can really run and throw the ball well. And moving on to my number 4, I also have Cincinnati. I think Desmond Ridder's a really good quarterback, although, like Evan said, he's struggling. But I think Cincinnati's defense under Luke Fickell is a really good defensive coach. He was a defensive coordinator at Ohio State and head coach for a year. He's really turned the program around and turned them back into elite Cincinnati form. I think along, like Evan said, with Cincinnati and BYU, but are 2 teams that could sneak into the playoff if things move in the right direction for them. And I don't know. I think I like Cincinnati a little more than BYU, like Evan likes BYU. And moving on to my number 5, I got Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish under Ian Book as quarterback is really good. I think their running game is really solid. And I think Brian Kelly is one of the most underrated coaches in college football. And should be really looked at as an NFL coach. As Evan says, he's horrible, but I think he's clear long as he's won everywhere he's went, and I think he's really deserving of that Notre Dame job and possibly an NFL job soon with all the coaching carousel that goes on in the NFL yearly. Now on to our 4th section and our last section. We're going over our top 5 Heisman contenders right now for the Heisman. Starting off with me, I got number 1, I got Trevor Lawrence. He's been wheeling and dealing like he has his whole college career, his 3rd year as a junior. I think he's an obvious number 1 pick, and I just think that he has played outstanding this year. I mean, he's been pushing to play, and he sure looks like he's ready to ball out as he has this whole season. And I think this is his Heisman to lose right now, and I just think that the way he's playing literally flawless. And now moving on to my number 2, I got Justin Fields. I know he's not played a game yet, but I think Justin Fields is special. I think along with him, Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance, they're the top 3 quarterbacks unanimously for the NFL draft. And I just think that Justin Fields, with the playmakers he has, can throw for a lot of yards in 8 games, can run a little bit since he ran apparently a 4.3 and a 40-yard dash, which is, I don't know if that's true or not, but according to some Ohio State people, it's true. And I just think that he's a stud and waiting for the NFL. And now coming on to my number 3, I know me and Evan heavily disagree on this, and I mean heavily disagree. I have Kyle Trask.
No shot.
I have the Kyle Trask from Florida as quarterback. I think he's coming from being a backup in high school to now starting at Florida. I think he's been a stud ever since Felipe Franks literally did not play good at all, and he got hurt. I think Kyle Trask got the starting job and ran with it the last 2 years. And with him having Kyle Pitts now as a lead weapon, I think that he's been really good having that go-to target to go to, and having Dan Mullen as a head coach has really helped him. And now moving on to my number 4, I know Evan hates this guy because he goes to Alabama. But I have Mac Jones, the quarterback for Alabama. He looked really good against Georgia. He threw the ball around well. He hit his weapons. He didn't make any really big mistakes. And I think that he can move a little bit, which you always need at the college or pro level. And I just think that if he keeps playing like this, I think Alabama has a really good shot to win the SEC this year. And number 5, I know Evan loves this guy. I have Zach Wilson out of BYU. I mean, you can't lie with the numbers here. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and I forgot to add him into the NFL list. He's in that top 4 group of Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson, like I just said. I think he's a really good quarterback. He can run. He's big. He's athletic. He makes all the throws. He has a really good arm. And I think he has an outside shot of winning the Heisman if BYU can get close to making the playoff as a top 10 team.
So now on to my top 5 Heisman list. So coming in number 1 for me is, in my opinion, the most talented player in the country.
Wrong.
And that's Justin Fields. Jax tends to not agree with me here, but I don't know how you can't say that after last year. I mean, this man was insane. Coming at number 2, as much as I don't like this guy, I have to put Trevor Lawrence in at number 2 after beating my team, Ohio State, last year in a heartbreaker with some bad calls. Ohio State was a clear better team, but with some bad calls in there, they didn't win. So this makes me just not like this guy even more. So coming at number 3, I really wanted to put this guy at number 2, but I had to put him right below Trevor Lawrence as he's having a pretty good year this year, and that's Zach Wilson. This guy's just got the whole package. I mean, he's got the arm, he's got the legs. I mean, this BYU team, he's led this BYU team to an undefeated season so far, and I don't see him losing anytime soon, to be honest. He's just looked really good to me, and that's why he's at number 3 on my list. Coming at number 4, as much as I don't like this team, I got Mac Jones. I mean, as much as I wanted Georgia to win in that primetime game last weekend, he looked really good, throwing it to Waddle down the field, to Devontae Smith. I mean, Mac Jones has led them to an undefeated year. He's looked good. And coming at number 5, it was either down to him or Najee Harris, 2 people I just don't like, and I had to pick Travis Etienne. He's looked better to me. I mean, with him and Trevor Lawrence, that makes them so much better. Last year, they were a really good package against Ohio State last year in the playoff. But, yeah, I got Etienne at number 5. So that's going to do it for our college football Big Ten talk. I'm Evan Whitney.
I'm Jax Rogan.
And we'll see you next week.